The rugged Altai Mountains run for hundreds of miles along the border between Kazakhstan and outer Mongolia.
This place is beautiful, but it's incredibly remote, and winters can get down to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And in some places, the ground can be frozen all year round.
The Bolshoi Ulagan River runs through the mountains, creating a breathtaking valley, and it's surrounded on all sides by stunning alpine meadows.
At a plateau in the mountains over 5,000 feet above sea level, archaeologists working in the remote area come across an unusual formation.
In the middle of a field in the valley, they discovered an enormous pile of boulders and stones stacked on top of each other.
The circular pile is about 10 feet high and stretches over 100 feet in diameter. It's definitely man-made, and it's been built deliberately.
The archaeologists believe that the rocks must be covering something underneath. So slowly and carefully, they begin to remove the stones.
They bring in cranes to dig out the biggest boulders, and after weeks of painstaking work, they unearth what's been buried underneath.
The remains of what appears to be an entire log cabin are found frozen into the permafrost below.
It's perfectly preserved, and it looks like the kind of place a lumberjack would call home.
It's possible that someone was living here. There are examples of people living in underground dwellings all around the world.
But this place is completely covered up with rocks and would have been inaccessible.
To better understand the structure's purpose, the archaeologists excavate each log and bring them up to the surface.
The team recovers at least 40 logs, and when they examine them, they make another astonishing find.
Each log is notched with its own very specific mark, almost like Roman numerals.
It looks like these marks are actually symbols that describe which log goes where in the structure.
Using the markings as a guide, the archaeologists meticulously reconstruct the cabin in the field, exactly as it had stood underground.
Each of the attachment points between the logs were precisely carved into the wood, and they were perfectly preserved by the cold earth.
The cabin is about 23 feet wide by 13 feet long. And when it was all put together, the angles were off by less than half an inch.
The wood is carbon dated, and they determine the cabin has been under the permafrost for over 2,300 years.
For the structure to be preserved in the ice so long and still be so stable means it was exceptionally engineered. Whoever built this knew what they were doing.
By analyzing the wood, they determined that this cabin is made of larch, a tree that doesn't grow in this exact area of the valley.
They see that the trees had come from further down the mountain and had been felled during the early spring season, just before they would have started growing again in the warm weather.
The archaeologists now believe the structure had been built elsewhere. The logs were marked and then piece by piece relocated to this specific site in the valley. The cabin was then reconstructed inside a deep pit and buried for the next 2,000 years.
But why bury an entire cabin underground? If it's not a house to live in, it's possible that it was built to house the dead.
Many cultures bury their dead in large, elaborate tombs and create substantial resting places for their lost loved ones.
Depending on a culture's beliefs, offerings of important objects may be placed in the grave with the deceased. Sometimes, entire structures are built for the dead to inhabit in the afterlife.
But if this is a giant grave, where's the body?
Grave robbers are notorious for stealing artifacts from tombs and grave sites. And at 2,300 years old, there have been plenty of opportunities for someone to raid this cabin.
Though usually, grave robbers only take things of value, like weapons, clothing, and jewelry, not the bodies.
Records show that the site had previously been excavated, 70 years earlier. This dig had uncovered two bodies, a man and a woman in their 50s resting together in a single large coffin made from a hollowed-out tree. The coffin had been buried inside the log cabin. The bodies were transported to the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg for further study.
Incredibly, their bodies have been perfectly preserved. Their skin was still intact, and the researchers could even see the color and texture of their hair.
But that's not all. Both of their bodies are covered in elaborate tattoos.
This male has what appears to be a huge tiger tattoo running from his chest and shoulders around to his back, and horses, birds, and seemingly mythical creatures along his shoulders, arms, and legs.
The woman is also tattooed down both her arms, though in a slightly different style.
Looking closer, the archaeologists make a grim discovery. The brains of both bodies have been removed from their skulls.
And disturbingly, most of the muscles from their bodies have been taken out and replaced with straw. Their skin was reshaped and sewn up again with cord made of horsehair and animal tendons.
This is a really elaborate burial tradition. Treating the bodies like this after death and burying them in a huge grave shows that they must have been very important.
Taking out the vital organs and preserving the bodies suggests that perhaps there was a long period of time between when they died and when they were buried.
If they died in the winter, the ground would have been frozen solid. So the community would have had to wait for the ground to thaw before they could prepare the burial chamber. So who are these people, and who would have gone through all this effort 2,300 years ago?
Between 900 and 200 BC, the Scythians had controlled this area of southern Siberia. A ferocious nomadic people, they dominated lands all across Central Asia, from China all the way to the Black Sea. Led by fierce warlords and chieftains, they were known for their excellent horse riding and horrific treatment of their enemies.
Could this be the grave of a Scythian leader?
Along with the tattooed bodies, archaeologists uncovered 9 other skeletons in the grave. The remains of 9 horses fully equipped with their reins and saddles had been buried outside the cabin.
The horses' skulls show a traumatic smashing injury, indicating that they'd been killed intentionally with a sharp blow to the forehead for the purpose of being buried in this grave along with these bodies.
The Scythians revered their horses. They would have been some of their most valuable possessions. So sacrificing 9 of them at once would have been a huge deal.
The ornate tattoos reveal a mix of Chinese and Persian influence. The Scythians ran an area that spanned the distance between these two cultures. So this artwork and the sacrificed horses suggest that this is a Scythian grave.
This couple must have been of great importance for them to have received such a burial. Not only had they been preserved until they could be buried, but they were also sent to the afterlife with their horses and their most prized possessions. So it's highly likely that they were leaders in their community.
The archaeologists believe the log cabin is a smaller version of the houses built by these Scythian people, and it was placed inside the grave as an offering and as a place for the deceased to inhabit in their afterlife.
Today, the reconstructed log cabin rests at a museum in the area, and both the cabin and the bodies are being preserved for future study.